Wes Streeting attended the NHS LGBT conference. I believe it was yesterday, maybe in the 15th of September. Yeah, so that's yesterday, isn't it? I think it was in London. At this, he is said to have lamented the fact that he had to ban puberty blockers, a decision which he said made him feel very uncomfortable, because he was constrained by clinical advice. He also criticised situations in which, and I quote, blokes are having to go to the women's toilets because they were born female. He also claimed that a very small number of people regret medical transition. That is very debatable. And he says he's frustrated by the delay to a puberty blocker trial. And he told trans people, I am on your side. Now, that is a very kind of different message to what he has been sending to the people. He's been sending a very centrist message, saying, oh, it's time to block puberty blockers for kids. These are what they give kids, mixed up kids who say they might be in the wrong body before they reach puberty. So this stops puberty. According to medical experts, causes lifelong problems, physical problems. Let's talk to Kellie-Jay Keen, women's rights activist, feminist. Kellie-Jay Keen, Kelly, first of all, let's have a look, shall we, at Wes in action at this event.
So I am definitely listening, but I would accept firstly, that's not the perception. And secondly, in terms of the listening, that people have not seen action that suggests that I've got it. And in some areas, that's because I am constrained by the clinical advice and the evidence. And particularly when you're in this job, sometimes you do have to say no to things, even when it makes you feel really uncomfortable. And it has not sat easily with me at all that there are young people who've said, they've described to me how they feel about not being able to access puberty blockers or the risk of not being able to access puberty blockers in the future. And it's been distressing for me to hear. And it's not sat comfortably with me. No one's worried about men's spaces broadly. It's not been an issue of controversy. I've not heard men talking about men's spaces or men's sex-based rights. And yet,
well, Kellie-Jay, that's a very different kind of message, a very different tone to what he's been saying to the public. He didn't say he felt uncomfortable about blocking puberty blockers. He didn't tell us that. And there he is saying, oh, yeah, you know, the trouble is I'm constrained by clinical advice and evidence. So in other words, doctors saying these puberty blockers are very bad for kids, and we've got evidence. And the health secretary feels constrained by that. That's a bit strange, isn't it?
Yes and no. I feel a little more sympathetic, to be honest, after hearing him say it than reading what he said and how it was characterised. I think, I'm going to be fair to Wes Streeting now, and I don't necessarily want to be. I think he's sort of said that he felt uncomfortable. The most alarming thing for me, I'm not going to lie, is the bit where he calls children young people. And I find that sort of erasure of what we're really talking about when he's talking about blocking puberty. We're talking about children. And he sort of says, you know, when I talk to young people, and that is a growing trend in society, that when children are making lifelong decisions, suddenly they're young people. But when they're criminally liable for something, for example, in the case of Graham Linehan being in court, suddenly a 17-year-old is a child, like a poor, defenseless, vulnerable child. So that's alarming. But for the rest of it, I just think we shouldn't ever listen to what politicians say. They don't ever say things that are really true. We should just watch what they do. And the government came out after the CAS review and made big claims anyway about what they were going to do to safeguard children. Then actually, what they're still doing is they're going to allow some nasty little trial where some children still get sterilised. So I think we should just focus on what they do, because this Labour government, I mean, maybe he'll be sacked by tomorrow. We just don't know.
Most of them will be, I suspect, including the Prime Minister. Will you bear with me, Kelly, because I need to read out a statement from Wes's department, the Department of Health and Social Care. A spokesperson said, "Children's health care must always be evidence-led. Based on the recommendations from the independent CAS review, we are reforming gender services to ensure young people receive the holistic care they deserve. This involves setting up multidisciplinary teams, including mental health support and paediatrics within specialist children hospitals to provide safe, high quality and all-round care." I mean, what I would say about Wes Streeting is in a terrible cabinet, he's always come across as one of the more reasonable members of this government. So you're prepared to cut him some slack on this one?
Well, I just think he's talking to some probably rabid activists in a room. I don't know that. It's just a feeling from, I don't know, 7 years of experience of dealing with these people. And I think he came across as relatively conciliatory. He didn't say he didn't agree with it. He said he found it uncomfortable. And it probably is uncomfortable when somebody comes in his surgery with their coercive, manipulative parents, and they're all saying, well, my daughter really is a boy. He probably does feel like, you know, when he says, well, we've had to make this decision, maybe that's just a good way of doing it. I don't think they've gone far enough. I'd like to see a lot more. And one thing I would like to see, actually, is that we stop taking any of this stuff very seriously. I think if we had a sudden spate of hysteria where loads of children thought that they were going to sprout wings and they were jumping out of windows, I don't think we would say we'll have a multidisciplinary team to explain that, you know, sometimes it's not really wings that you've got on the back of your shoulder blades. Or so I think even having an industry, as it were, or a section of medicine where we say that this is a real thing, that we need to have real solutions, rather than saying, look, there are many things that children believe. There are many things they're picking up online, but there are many things that they'll believe that are totally untrue. And by giving it a big sort of area of medicine, we validate it as something that potentially is real. And I don't think we should do that.
Good point. Now, how do you feel generally in terms of the Supreme Court ruling on biological sex, which was supposed to change everything? Talking of the NHS, it's one of the many organisations that is quite clearly railing against that ruling for all it is worth. And it isn't just the NHS. So many public bodies are doing their best to ignore the fact that, for example, from now on, you shouldn't be allowing biological men into female safe spaces, into their lavatories, into their toilets, etc., their changing rooms. But so many organisations are just doing their best to ignore it. How do you feel about that?
Well, I feel quite disgusted. And I think many of these organisations, they probably didn't start allowing men in women's spaces until, I reckon, 2017, 2018. I think in 2014, 2015 was when the big DEI push. That was when everybody started thinking, oh, we better have these policies. Like I said, 2014, 2015. 2018, probably they were enacted and people had rewritten their policies and introduced this nonsense. So it shouldn't really be as embedded as it is. In my own local council, they are still letting a particular man use the women's toilets, and that particular man is on a mission now to make everywhere gender neutral. So women don't have any women's spaces anymore. He'd rather take them all away than go and use the men's or allow women any spaces where he's not allowed. Yeah. So it's going to take a long time. Yeah,
it is, because it's happening everywhere. And it's all too brief tonight, Kelly, but come on again soon and we'll discuss this contentious issue at length. Good to talk to you, as always. Kellie-Jay Keen there, feminist activist, women's rights campaigner.